Alright, I am back with another Destiny 2 video in what is alleged to be a meaty, hefty, beefy TWAB, whatever adjectives you want to use. I think they used hefty. I am not on the verge of fully losing my voice this week, so this should make reading through this hopefully a little bit easier, even if I have been somewhat sick for, I don't know, 5 months now as a new parent. Alright, let's get it moving here. We have the armor from Festival of the Lost in fun anime poses. Alright. Happy TWABs Day Guardians. This week we are back with a bit of a hefty TWAB, including some weapons and the economy changes mentioned last week. Yeah, those got cut out of the initial TWAB for some reason. So sit tight because we're going to be passing the mic to a few different teams to chat with us all today. Trick or treat. We also wanted to call out a reminder for Festival of the Lost starting next week. Our social channels will have the trailer Tuesday morning, but before we share all the candies and goodies, we wanted to share our newest costumes. Wait a second, this is Destiny, we're talking about ornaments. Okay, so does not seem like they're going to be talking about Festival of the Lost specifics here. They usually will just put up like an event page or something, so I'm not super surprised about that. Really expecting just kind of more Haunted Lost sectors, and then I talked about the sniper rifle in an article I wrote earlier today. National Coming Out Day. I wrote a whole article about this, you can check that out, and they did a cool thing for that. Destination materials updates. Alright. Oh, I already see something interesting. Okay. Alright, Guardians, it's time to discuss the changes around our destination materials, so let's hand the mic over to design lead Josh Kalinske. Josh, hey Guardians, Josh Kalinske here again to talk to you all about destination materials. You know, all those dusklite shards, helium filaments, and microphasic data lattices. I never actually said these words out loud, that you've had sitting in your inventory for years. We've taken a lot of time to evaluate their place within Destiny 2 and decided that in Season 19 these items will say goodbye. Oh, so we're just cutting them completely. I don't hate that. Okay, we need less currencies in Destiny. There's too many currencies, so this is probably good. Alright, well, we'll see what they're doing. Why have we made this change, and what does it mean for you all as you explore the various destinations in Destiny 2? Well, read on and you'll find out. Starting in Season 19, players will no longer be able to obtain... I'm not going to read all these again. Alright, all of the planetary items, I think. The keyword here is obtain. Unlike previous currencies that we have removed from the game, these materials will not be fully depreciated, but I'm getting ahead of myself. More on that in a bit. A simpler economy. Yes, good lord, they've needed economy streamlining for so long. Let's see what that actually means in practice. First and foremost, we have to talk about why we decided to make this change. After all, these materials have been part of the DNA of Destiny since the very beginning. The simplest answer is that Destiny has grown to become a much more complex game than it started all those years ago. One of the major goals that we have on the economy team for Destiny 2 is making the game more approachable to new and returning players. One way that can help us is by reducing the number of currencies that players need to understand and keep track of. This helps us reduce the cognitive load that Destiny's economy places on the player. Yes, it is a heavy cognitive load at times, I will say that. With fewer currencies to manage, it'll be easier for players to learn and remember the value of items that they have in their inventories. Removing these materials also benefits players by freeing up inventory space and making it easier to find the items they are looking for. Times they are exchanging. The first thing many of you are probably asking is, what about the material exchange? And I'll let you know it's not going away. Master Rahul will continue to provide the services that Spider once did, although there will be some changes. As mentioned a bit earlier, these materials will not be fully depreciated, as we have done with destination materials in the past. Instead, Rahul will continue to accept any destination materials that you have stored up over the years, although we'll see them exchanged at a lower rate than they had previously. And Rahul will no longer sell destination materials to players. Starting in Season 19, Rahul will now exchange 5,000 glimmer for a stack of 20 destination materials. Yeah, that is a reduction for sure. If players have less than 20 of a material inventory, he will exchange 250 for each one. Once Season 19 begins, this will be the only use for destination materials going forward. So you could safely exchange all your materials and free up the inventory space. So they are taking them out of, what are they even in now? I think buying upgrade modules. Are they in, what else are they in? I don't even know. Buying Ascendant shards. I honestly can't even remember. However, there are some new items that Master Rahul has found an interest in. Starting in Season 19, players can exchange excess dark fragments, phantasmal fragments, and Hero Always pieces at Rahul in exchange for Glimmer. Okay, so these are the other random currencies that are still a part of expansions and things that they are selling, but they have no real use. I have like 3,000 Hero Always pieces, so the Phantasmal Fragments I'm only using to plant the banner and the moon. The cost of exchanging legendary shards for Glimmer remains unchanged. Enhancement Prism and Ascendant Shard costs will see destination material costs removed and replaced with legendary shard costs. Lord knows we need more legendary shard costs. Okay, so this is the new table. Alright, so it's 50 legendary shards for an Ascendant Shard. I mean, whatever. Considering the weapon one is 400 legendary shards, that's probably fine. Alright, now that you know about the material exchange, you're probably thinking, well, there goes the easiest way to get Glimmer, and that's not lost on us. To offset this, we have to take an opportunity to breathe new life into a part of Destiny gameplay loop. It doesn't get as much attention as it used to. Public events. In Season 19, public events will be getting a big Glimmer boost, especially the heroic versions. So the next time you see Fallen mining for Glimmer in the EDZ, take a moment to hop off your spear and help your fellow Guardians take home some of that sweet, shimmering Glimmer for yourselves. When completing heroic public events, players can expect to earn between 10k and 12.5k Glimmer. When completing normal public events, 3,300 and 4,600. These are raw numbers without Glimmer boosting mods or bonuses enabled. So 60% boost over this is like closer to what? That's like, I don't know, 19,000, 20,000 Glimmer for a heroic public event. And like, I mean, you know, some heroic public events can be done in like 30 seconds, depending on what they are. So, I mean, it's not the most exciting thing in the world, and I guess it's not, you know, just pressing a button 5 times at Rahul, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how this goes. I'm a little skeptical, but bums me out. We are, as of yet, not addressing blues and all these economy issues, the other reward that you will be getting from public events half the time. The price of change. As I mentioned earlier, the only use for destination materials will be at Rahul's material exchange. That means that anything previously cost a player destination materials, such as purchasing exotic weapons, that's where you do things, will see some updates. In the case of these legacy weapons, the destination materials cost will be replaced with a legendary shard cost. Are they increasing legendary shard sources anywhere? Because I feel like they're gonna need to. Raid exotics will see no change to their current costs. Other items that once saw destination materials as part of the purchase cost, such as upgrade modules, enhancement prisms, and shards, will see the cost remove entirely, and there's no further changes. So you're not going to be charged legendary shards for those past what you already are. Do they already cost this? Alright, I think they do. Mod Squad. In a world without destination materials, there are a few ghost mods that need to be addressed. Good point. First, the 3 materialism mods for the playlist will be removed. Additionally, Bountiful Harvest mod functionality has changed. Equipping this mod, your ghost will now increase Glimmer when harvesting from resource nodes. Alright. I'm living in a material world. I have a material guardian. The primary source of destination materials has always been resource nodes scattered across the various destinations in Destiny. Those resource nodes are not going anywhere, and it's still in every player's best interest to collect from any of the nodes to see along their journeys. As many players have noticed, with the release of Witch Queen, the deposits of fundamental osmium found in the Throne World did not grant a currency, but delivered Glimmer, XP, and a reputation directly to the player. Though we will not be creating new reputation systems for our previous destination vendors, all of those guys, we will be working to improve these experiences. In fact, Devrim and Failsafe, our longest tenured destination vendors who have been with us since the Red War, will be getting a small update in Season 19. Really? The reputation system that saw players turning in destination materials to gain reputation ranks has been removed. This also means there are no longer rank requirements to purchase armor from these vendors. Additionally, the ghost shells and emblems that were once earned via reputation rank can now be purchased directly from Devrim or Failsafe for 10 legendary shards each. We have increased the number of daily bounties that Devrim and Failsafe offer from 3 to 4. Though we don't have repeatable bounties to add to these destinations, it brings us closer to parity across all the destination vendors. We will be removing the sale of Sensate weapons from both vendors when the season goes live. This is largely to prevent players from wasting resources on weapons that cannot be upgraded. Okay, so that's not really any major change there. Okay, Destiny Brazil is launching. So if you were Brazil, you can check that out. Mid-season weapon tuning. There we go. All right. Last week, we had a nice chat with the weapons team covering a wide array of questions. They also touched on some plans for weapon tuning coming in the mid-season patch next week. Associate Designer Mercules is back again to give more detail on the what and the why for the weapon changes in 6.2.5. Hello everyone, Mercules here. We have a lot to talk about in this mid-season patch from a weapon standpoint, so let's dive right in. One note before we get started. When we say ease of use, we usually mean one or a combination of the following things: stability, aim assist, recoil, direction, body shot time to kill, or optimal time to kill crit percentage, i.e. requiring a weapon that requires 100% critical shots to achieve optimal TTK is lower ease of use, and a weapon requiring 50% critical shot to get to optimal is higher ease of use. We've seen this question asked a lot and wanted to address it up front so in the future you can have a better idea of where we're looking when we say we want to address the ease of use of certain weapons for balance purposes. Archetypes. I can already tell it's going to be very long. Alright. Auto rifles. Auto rifles see strong usage in most PvP activities, around 25%, but that drops to 13% in endgame PvP. 25% in PvP activities? Really? That's surprising. We often hear suggestions that we should decrease TTK or increase the range, but we have investigated those options and found that with very minor changes to either, they quickly become oppressive across PvP sandboxes. I'm reminded of the Gnawing Hunger era briefly there. As it stands, several high-impact and precision-frame auto rifles are already capable of outranging hand cannons, at least one adaptive frame can as well. We do not want them wholeheartedly competing with pulse rifles in the 40-meter ranges. In addition, even a single bullet reduction in TTK places many auto rifle subfamilies into best-in-class lethality. As such, we have decided to lean more heavily, increasing their ease of use and making them feel better to shoot within their optimal ranges, with a substantial buff to stability. Although the change is only to the high end of the stat curve, the change affects all stat values above 0, with increasing effects as you get to higher stat values. I feel like this isn't the main thing that people want them better in PvE. Alright. Precision aim auto rifles have languished since the Uriel's gift meta of early Destiny 2, and because they are inherently so stable, they did not benefit from the changes outlined above. As such, we have slightly brought their critical hit multiplier up to increase their critical hit damage, which combined with the body shot damage buff last season puts them in a much stronger position without directly lowering optimal TTK. Increase the effects of the stability stat on recoil by 20% at the high end. Precision frames increase the crit damage multiplier from 1.5 to 1.55. 30 to 31. As mentioned in a previous TWAB, we want to reduce the effectiveness of max speed bow swapping as a strategy, as it is functionally fast enough that it is nearly impossible to counter in high-level gameplay. The below change is not massive, but should move the total time for a bow swap kill to be closer than other primary weapons' optimal TTK, giving players a better opportunity to fight back against it. Increased bow stow duration varies by subfamily handling stat. Before 0 to 100, 0.4 seconds to 0.2 seconds, precision 0.433 to 0.2. After 0.45 to 0.3, 0.48 to 0.33. Again, is this PvE too? I don't want my bows to feel more sluggish. I guess it's just for swapping, but still. Yeah, fine. Pulse rifles. Pulse rifles are strong in the current sandbox, both due to the reduced dominance of other mid to long range weapons and the availability of multiple easily acquirable craftable strong options. Crafting. In addition, a few balance passes back, we buffed their range a moderate amount, but in the current sandbox, we no longer feel they need that help across the board. As such, we've removed the range bonus at the low end while retaining it at the high end to continue rewarding those who spec into range without giving the same advantage to those who do not. We also felt there was not enough of a difference in the feel of weapon handling across pulse rifle subfamilies, so we've rebalanced the stat to decrease the effects slightly at the low end and raise them at the high end. Adaptive frame. Pulse rifles have not been favored since the bygone era. Oh man, it's bygones. And we believe this change will be enough to increase their strength relative to other pulse rifles without pushing them too far into meta territory. As for rapid fire, pulse rifles, Peace of Mind has been an out-of-band zoom stat that allows it to compete at longer ranges that wouldn't be expected to the subfamily, so it will be the first of multiple zoom outliers we'll be looking at, bringing in line over the next season. General, rebalance the effective handling stat across pulse rifles. Increased handling by 5% at the high end, reduced effects of handling by 2% at the low end. It's very small, but okay. Adjusted damage fall-off scale based on the range stat. 0 range, 16 meters to 15, 100 range, unchanged. Adaptive frames, increase the precision multiplier from 1.6 to 1.65. crit from 30.4 to 31.4. This allows a weapon to kill guardians below tier 4 resilience with 6 crits, 2 bursts in 0.6 seconds. Rapid fire frame pulse rifles. Peace of mind base zooms reduced from 19 to 18. Scout rifles. When we buffed high impact scout rifles last season, the main goal was to get them up off the floor by reducing how punishing hitting body shots was. We overbuffed them a bit, going so far as to make the optimal TTK more forgiving against low resilience as well. This has made them slightly too easy to use for a weapon with functionally unlimited range. The below change to damage will take their optimal TTK back to requiring 3 crits across all resilience values while retaining the change to body shot TTK from the previous balance pass. High impact scouts reduced it from 42 to 40 and crit from 73 to 70. Sidearms. Interestingly, sidearms have long had substantially less auto-aim range compared to damage range, a decision made many moons ago. With the removal of the auto-aim fall-off bonus from rangefinder, we felt that sidearms in general seemed lacking in the 15-meter engagement distances, particularly on mouse and keyboard. As such, this change should bring them up to near parity with other weapons' auto-aim to damage fall-off ratios. For comparison's sake, sidearms with rangefinder should feel about the same after this change as they do in the game now, but sidearms without should feel notably better. That's good. True Vanguard will be thrilled. Increase auto-aim fall-up distance by 30% across the board. That's pretty significant. I love sidearms, so I'm very curious to check that out. Submachine guns. We wanted to be very careful touching submachine guns as we believe most of them are in a good place with their intended ranges. However, in-game and in playtest, it has become apparent that some SMGs can be used well outside of this distance effectively, and it has made it difficult for other weapons to compete. We've addressed a couple outliers individually, but have also made a change to rein in how strong SMGs are once damage fall-off begins. As mentioned above, some outliers in the precision frame subfamily of SMGs have had out-of-band zoom values to the point where they can overstep the effective ranges of some auto rifles. These outliers have made it difficult to justify tuning precision frames overall. At the same time, their 0.8 second optimal TTK makes them weak options against other SMGs, forcing them to rely on high effective range and damage boosting perks in order to compete. Lightweight frame SMGs currently overlap too much with adaptive frames, so we're making a small change that will help differentiate them. Reduce damage fall-off from 24 meters to 23 meters across the board. Precision frame, increase base damage from 16 to 17. Crit from 22.4 to 23.8. Reduce the zoom of Shira's Wrath, Adept, and Friction Fire from 16 to 15. And they already reduced the zoom on that once. Lightweight frame SMGs, reduce base damage from 11 to 10.85, crit from 18.2 to 17.9. Yeah, they are touching literally every category of weapon, apparently. Fusion rifles. Precision frame fusion rifles have seen a uptick in usage since we buffed them to allow them to kill in 5 bolts, and they are sucking the air out of the room for other subfamilies due to their extremely high ease of use. The below change will make it slightly harder for players to maintain perfect vertical recoil without the additional manual control of the bolt spread. Reduce the effect of the intrinsic precision frame perk has recoil direction by 50% for fusion rifles only. That sounds significant. Glaives have been difficult to counter when they have shield energy, but this change should address that. We will continue to keep an eye on glaive shield damage resistance in the future, especially when their improved hit registration changes come into effect in Season 19. Reduce glaive shield damage resistance versus players from 75% to 50%. Damage from player supers unchanged at 50%. Damage from non-players unchanged at 97.5%. So no PvE nerf there. Sniper rifles. We made several changes trying to make challenging a sniper rifle more feasible over the years, but ultimately the way flinch works made this tricky to do in a way that didn't make them feel worse to use, particularly in PvE. Under the hood, incoming damage causes a player's aim to deflect by an angle dependent on the weapon type, damage amount, and then there's a spring force that pulls aim back down. For spring nerds out there, this is defined as a dampening ratio and spring force. Wow, making video games is very hard. We made a change in Season 19 that has significantly moved the needle in internal playtests. We've reduced the amount of flinch received in PvE to avoid adversely affecting that experience, but increased the settle time substantially. That means you'll continue to flinch from your target without settling enough to shoot through flinch. Our goal is to discourage continuing to attempt to snipe when you're already under fire. The experience of sniping while not under fire won't change. So increase settle time by 60% after receiving flinch. Reduce received flinch in PvE. We're making a similar change to linear fusion rifles in Season 19. Oh, so this will also be for Arbalest and what's the other one? Lorenz. Trace rifles. Like auto rifles, trace rifles have not been popular at high levels of play outside of some particularly niche builds. When we investigated ways to improve their performance, we found that a small increase in damage had a dramatic and negative effect in terms of how it felt to play against them. Imagine being consistently killed by an out-of-bounds with rampage at 30 to 35 meters. The range is quite respectable on its own. Indeed, what we found was the lack of stability made it difficult for most trace rifles to be used at the farther points of their intended engagement ranges, because it was difficult to sustain precision fire on moving targets, so we've increased their stability by an even larger amount than we did auto rifles. At high stability sets, this should make trace rifles feel more like laser beams and less like recoiling Ghostbusters proton packs. Increase the effect stability set has on recoil at the low end by 10%, at the high end by 25%. That seems like it could be significant. Curious how that will feel. There's a lot of... I feel like a lot of the trace rifles are pretty high stability and like built in. Yeah, I'm curious how that will go. Rocket launchers. Although rocket launchers see passable use in PvP, they lag far behind other heavy weapons like linear fusion rifles and heavy grenade launchers in effectiveness, due in large part to their inability to get multiple kills per magazine without targets being closely grouped together. With an increase of blast radius, this should make it noticeably easier to net kills on targets that are not right next to the center of the blasts. Increase blast radius by 0.4 meters across the board. Can't wait to die even more to Gallarhorn in Gambit. I'm assuming that will affect that. I don't know. Gutshot straight. We had multiple reports that audio was triggering frequently enough to be annoying, so we removed the audio cue from activation. Okay. I really have not used that enough to notice that. Rangefinder. They already talked about this before, right? Yeah. Remove the additional 20% on aim assist. Yeah, we need that. Jade Rabbit. Jade Rabbit has a unique stat package compared to almost all other high-impact scouts in the game, and has a massively high aim assist and stability. The aim assist pulls the weapon's ease of use well above what we find to be acceptable for a weapon with nearly unlimited range and a fast optimal TTK. Now that high-impact scout rifles are performing comparatively better than they have in the past, the time has come to bring Jade Rabbit more in line with the upper end of the other scout rifles in its subfamily. Reduced aim assist by 20. No, Jade Rabbit. I'm using you right now in Crucible. So sad. Yes, I'm very trend following. I get it. Lord of Wolves. When we nerfed Lord of Wolves for PvP, we mentioned it was part of a larger rework we were planning for the weapon, aiming at making it more competitive in PvE content. Right now, the Release the Wolves perk reduces accuracy by a substantial amount with the intention that it would be useless against small targets, but still land on larger targets. The increased spread meant it was difficult to land critical hits even on large targets without having to be dangerously close to them. In content where the extra damage matters, this could often be a lethal experience, so we reduce the accuracy penalty by 70%. Should still be inaccurate enough where using Release the Wolves in PvP against Guardians will not be effective, but it will make it much easier to consistently hit critical hits on big targets in PvE without needing to be right next to them. When Release the Wolves is active, reduce aim down sight accuracy penalty 10 times to 3 times. Whew. Remove the 25% universal base damage buff, added a 40% additional PvE damage buff. Alright, remove the 50% critical hit multiplier penalty, added full auto as an intrinsic perk. Okay, I'm curious to use that in PvE after all that. That sounds like that could be cool. No time to explain. Yeah, I figured this was coming. This gun has been dominant in PvP for much of last season, topping the Trials usage and kill charge week in and week out. However, we had to be careful tuning this weapon because its dominance is not universal. This weapon sees over twice the usage and dramatically higher effectiveness on mouse and keyboard than it does on controller. For example, No Time to Explain makes up 29.9% of all pulse rifle usage in PvP, and 31% of pulse rifle kills. On controller, it's 12% and 12%. Jeez. With mouse and keyboard having higher stability, accuracy, and auto aim, 2 bursts from NTTE are much easier to achieve in that sandbox, so we need to tune it in a way where the difference was noticeable in MNK, but did not ruin gun feel for controller players. Oh boy. At the same time, we also wanted skilled players to continue to be able to use the weapon effectively while lowering the overall ease of use to make it more difficult to perform well with the weapon. God, freaking weapon balancing is hard, man. I really respect how ridiculous it is to like make changes to balance all these different things in like a PvE and PvP game. Like, it's just the amount they have to do is crazy. Like, it's still so hard, and they still, you know, don't get it right half the time because it's hard to actually like test, but I don't know. It's wild when you see something like this long and all the changes they're making and like what they have to consider. It's crazy. All right. We tested several changes and decided on a significant reduction to the recoil direction stat, which spreads out the burst pattern a noticeable but not uncontrollable amount, paired with a reduction in aim assist. We believe the weapon will remain a viable option in high-level gameplay, but we will be less dominant compared to other weapons operating within the same range, especially given the changes to the whole pulse rifle archetype. Reduce recoil direction from 90 to 73, reduce aim assist from 45 to 40. Alright. Risk Runner. Risk Runner is a very niche weapon with very niche strength, but 50% damage resistance in PvP with the perk active is far out of band, where we would like neutrally trigger damage resistance options to exist. We have reduced it down to 15%, which is still among the highest damage resistance options available, while at the same time making it less of a free win option versus other players who are using arc weapons. Yeah, that's fair. Risk Runner. I owe Risk Runner during my 1 day to grind out Recluse run back in my glory days. I really love that thing. Future items. In addition to the items mentioned in last week's TWAB, we want to make a note of a few more things we are looking at tuning sometime in the next season. Special ammo, linear fusion rifles, auto aim reduction, flinch tuning. They said that's coming in season 19. Machine gun balancing, making them a better heavy option in PvP. Reduce the difference between them and other heavy weapons in PvE. Make them less punishing to use for ad clearing. I already love machine guns, so I really have like the last couple buffs I did. So more buffs? Sure, bring it. Remove damage penalty to Dead Man's Tail at 5 stacks of Cranial Spike. Oof, that was long. Good info, but long. This is just player support report, known issues. Yep, duality bugs listed. The Gyre Falcon is in here. Dawn Core is still not in collections. So apparently Gyre Falcon and the duality fix, I think, is coming on Tuesday, I'm pretty sure, with Festival of the Lost. So we'll see if that happens. Movie of the week. Art of the week. Cool stuff. There we have it, Guardians. This week's TWAB. We know there's a lot of info to share at once, so please feel free to sound off on socials with any questions you may have. We are always learning and adjusting our communication methods, so we appreciate your time when responding to us with that kind of information. Okay, it's time to get back out there. Thank you for hanging out with us today, and we will see you next week with our favorite masks on for Festival of the Lost. Is this a secret or an animal? It's an animal. Say Gravity Sam. Okay. So, very long TWAB. Since I'm like not Mr. PvP person, that was a lot of PvP stuff and very little PvE stuff, I think, that will actually affect PvE. But, you know, they're nerfing some of the most popular PvP weapons, which is not a huge surprise, especially in the exotics. Jade Rabbit and No Time to Explain. Specifically, the big economy change is getting rid of all planetary materials, which don't think anyone will mourn that. It's weird. Like, it's weird to see how much stuff planetary materials are actually tied into. It's more than you think. Like, I wouldn't even have thought about the vendors and the planets and like a lot of stuff to remember. Apparently Josh is the person I need to talk to about blues because he's Mr. Game Economy. So I will keep working on that as the ultimate economic fix. I feel like we're going to need more sources of legendary shards soon because it's everything is being reduced to like glimmer and legendary shards essentially. So we need a little bit more work in that area. So I also really like the idea that you can exchange these things for glimmer now because I have just way too many of these. We need to work on things like Finest Matter Weave and the Glimmer consumable, like those don't need to exist anymore. We should get rid of those. Anyway, that was long, a lot to process, and I will be listening to Firing Range to actually find out all the analysis on the PvP changes, because they will explain it better than me. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I will